Why did Carlo flip? Welcome back to Fog Entertainment. It's a simple question, but is it a simple answer? No, but kinda aye. So let's look at it, right? Carlo brought in season 4. That's when we're like first properly introduced to the character. Tony's berating his entire crew because they're not making enough money. Carlo, throughout season 4 and 5, I would say has a decent level of respect for Tony Soprano. I absolutely would say that. But what I think are the contributing factors towards it are we've got to look back to early season 6, all right? Early season 6 with Tony Soprano, you've got the whole situation with the big man Vito. Vito comes out the closet, people don't really know what to do. And what I mean by that is they don't know how to act with it. They don't know how to deal with the situation with Vito. Tony realizes that, you know what, it may be 2006, but we're in the mafia. He's got to go. Like, just look at Carlo. Carlo. When Bobby brings up the fact that Vito, you can't be in our social club. That much I do know. Social club. He's got to go. He does got to go. Carlo wanted him to go. But it's a lot of contributing factors, my friends, right? Uh, Carlo wanted Vito to go, but at the same time, he was happy to take Vito's position in charge of construction, in charge of that crew. But another problem that came with that is I think Carlo could almost accept Tony not ruling that they needed to kill Vito. But once Tony, right, essentially gets rid of the Vito problem because Phil steps in, out the closet, bang, bang, good night, kills Vito. That problem's put to bed. But then construction, it begins to slow down. It doesn't make a lot of money. But if you just like throughout that, he's beginning to lose respect for Tony. There's scenes where Bobby gets shot, right? The ground that ricochets and takes out his eye, and then he's wearing an eye patch, and Tony berates him. Carlo's trying to put Bobby over, but at least he's earning for you, Skip. But Tony's like, yeah, well, he shouldn't be fucking out in that neighborhood at night. And Paul's like, even the cops don't go there no more. But that, like, Carlo's gradually, like, losing respect for him. He's lost respect for him for the whole fetal situation. He's lost respect for him there. We then have the whole stuff in the back of the car after they're on the way back from Hesh's. Um, Tony has just an outburst about money. He tells Carlo that maybe he should start sucking cock like Vito, and then maybe he'd know how to make a bit of money. But the funny thing is though he didn't take a lot of jokes to do with Vito. Well, we remember Big Dom, right? He's like, my mistake. Carlo's lipstick was on Vito's cock, and then obviously that ends up with bloody Fat Dom getting absolutely stabbed to death by Silvio, and obviously, of course, Carlo. But then that moves on. You move on. Just constant like disrespect towards Carlo. Then you look at the fact they killed Bert. Now, Bert is actually Carlo's cousin. Now, I never knew that, right? I had to do a wee bit of research into that, right? And then Silvio gets shot, right? Silvio gets dropped. He then brings up the fact to Tony, well, Tony, hey Tone, you gonna go visit Silvio in the hospital? And Tony's like, nah, and just walks upstairs with his assault rifle. And that is just a bit depressing, if you think of it, because here you've got the guy, the leader of the crew, the DeMille crime family, and he's not even willing to, visit his consigliere who's been shot up by New York in the hospital. It's just like undermines like by the end like Tony's kind of like checked out and doesn't really give a shit about his crew. If we're being honest, man, he just wants to keep guys around to make money. That's the way I viewed it, at least. And then the straw that broke the camel's back, is probably to do with the entire fact that his son got caught in possession of drugs, and then they had Carlo by the balls. But obviously, Carlo was old school. Ratting is just something you do not do, right? That is it. But at the flip side of that, folks, his son is precious to him. But the big question is, if Tony treated Carlo well, with no disrespect, and ruled in favour of Carlo with a lot of decisions, like regarding Vito and stuff like that, and maybe Silvio not killing Bert. But then again, Silvio killed Bert, nothing to do with Tony. But obviously, once Carlo got wind of that, right, that Bert's dead, he would probably put two and two together that Tony told Phil to do it, even though he didn't, because people wouldn't even fucking take a shit without Tony telling them to do it. But again, it's like that's a problem with the Sopranos. It's like Bert's Carlo's cousin and vice versa. But like we don't even see Carlo's fucking reaction to his cousin dying. It's a bit crazy. You know what I mean? It's absolutely crazy, guys. It's absolutely mental. But yeah, Carlo flips in the end, and you know what? That's pretty much why he did. I think you can just see over the season constant, just losing respect for your boss over and over and over again. By the end, it really probably just begs the questions like, why am I even protecting that guy? And you know what? As sad as it is, it's like you've seen like Christopher. How many times did he speak to Adriana, like JT Dolan and characters like that, where he's like, I gave that fucker pieces of my soul, Adriana, and then he tells like JT Dolan all the shit I could say, the shit I could do, etc., etc. Tell them is what it is. Anyway, Carlo, that's why he flipped, in my opinion, and then his son was obviously the final straw.